She's a poet, human rights activist, and the widow of a legendary author. Mo Rocca is in conversation with Rose Styron on Martha's Vineyard.
I had a very lucky life all the way along, and I think it was because I lived in the present or looked forward.
At 95, Rose Styron has finally decided to look back at her life as a poet, a founding member of Amnesty International, a mother of 4, and the wife of the late author William Styron, writer of The Confessions of Nat Turner and Sophie's Choice.
When you were younger, did you envision your life?
No.
Now it's Rose's turn in the spotlight. She's written a memoir and is the subject of a documentary by James Lapine.
When the 30th person has said to me, "You're my role model," and I think, does that mean because I've survived till I was 90 or because I'm still having a good time?
Rose Styron is a legend on Martha's Vineyard.
The Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright and filmmaker met Styron in 2014 on the Massachusetts island of Martha's Vineyard, and the two became fast friends.
Rose is a social animal.
Yeah.
You know, she lives for interaction with people. That is her passion. And as she says, because she loves to learn and loves being engaged in conversation. How did you get the name Rose?
I was named for my grandmother who died before I was born.
What was she like? Did you ever hear any? Your mother's
I know
mother or
nothing
your
about
father's?
my father's mother. I know nothing.
Rose Burgunder was raised in a well-to-do Baltimore family. Meeting bold-faced names just seemed to come with the territory. This is the part in the piece where we say in voiceover, instead, at 11, she begged to meet Diego Rivera.
Yes.
Not typical.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't think so for an 11-year-old.
I don't know.
The 11-year-old did meet the acclaimed Mexican artist, and the artwork her mother purchased that day hangs in Styron's home.
I remember my excitement at meeting this artist who I so admired. And as we were leaving, he leaned down and said to me, "I hope someday you will be as great an artist as I am." I left and I said to my mother, "He's full of himself, isn't he?"
While living in Rome in her 20s, Rose went for a drink with the writer William Styron, who just happened to be joined by another young writer named Truman Capote.
Our romance started that night, and Truman looked 13 years old with his blonde hair. And by the end of the evening, he was saying, "Bill, you ought to marry that girl."
When you married Bill, you didn't expect it to last more than a couple of years.
I didn't. You know, we were having a wonderful romance. I hadn't thought about the future. I was just having fun.
The fun continued when the newlyweds settled in Roxbury, Connecticut. James Baldwin lived in their guest house for a spell. Philip Roth and Arthur Miller were frequent visitors.
My life was that of, a country housewife.
During the day, Bill wrote, while Rose raised the children. But Rose ended up giving Bill a critical piece of feedback after she read the first draft of Sophie's Choice. Bill originally had the character of Sophie making her unimaginable choice between her children at Auschwitz at the start of the book.
I said, you just can't make this the first chapter. There's not a mother in the world who will read chapter 2. Can you somehow save it? And so he did. That was my only influence, I would say, into his writing.
We have an awful lot in common, but I think after all these years, we're still a mystery to each other.
Like so many couples, the Styrons were a study in contrasts.
The novels were all in his head. The adventure was in his head. It was on paper. He was scared of adventure.
But you were not scared of adventure.
I couldn't wait. And I resented being denied it, but marriage and Bill were more important, so I got over it each time.
But you and Bill had very different upbringings. Do you think that accounts maybe for...
It accounts for what?
For maybe him being scared of adventure and you craving adventure?
Yes, because he had to take care of his mother because she had developed cancer, and he was always aware that she might die. And she did when he was 13. So I think that's what set him on his pattern of being afraid of what was coming next.
Rose Styron is candid about the challenges they faced in their marriage, including their respective infidelities.
It didn't matter if we felt affection for other people. The fact is, the main thing was our marriage, and we weren't going to mess it up by going too far.
She's equally forthright about the depression that afflicted her husband.
Many of the artifacts of my house had become potential devices for my own destruction.
William Styron wrote about it in 1989. The disease returned in 2000, and he died with it in 2006.
Not having ever been depressed myself, I realized that I had a huge lapse of understanding, and I flunked often.
It doesn't sound like you did.
Well, I did.
How do you think you flunked?
In the last, year, say, when he wanted to apologize to me for all the things he knew he had done wrong, and instead of letting him talk about it and going over it with him, I couldn't do it. It was a big lack, and I kept saying, no, 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 you're wrong, everything was fine, don't worry about that, oh, that was nothing. But it reminded me of the bad times, and I couldn't handle it.
Was it also, though, because you were never really a backward-looking person?
I never thought of that. Maybe. Maybe.
Her mind doesn't go to the places that most people's minds go. And it's not that she doesn't want to think about it or won't think about it, but she won't. She doesn't fester. I don't know how else to put it.
Well, we have friends buried all around here, as you can see.
Friends like 60 Minutes correspondent Mike Wallace and humorist Art Buchwald.
So I guess I'll be right there sometime.
Not for a while.
I hope not. But I like that there are flowers coming up, is where I'd be buried. Maybe some roses will come up next.
What do you think keeps her going?
I think Rose has a thirst for life. I don't have that thirst for life, I'll tell you that. But I wish I did.
For Rose Styron, that thirst hasn't yet been quenched. Not a lot of people make new friends in their late 80s and 90s.
True. I never thought of that.
What do you think that says about you?
I think it says that friendship and family are the two most important things to me.
Are you still looking for new friends, or is your dance card filled?
My dance card will never be filled.